It is Thursday, May 16th. This is Jaguars Happy Hour. And now, a guy who wears memory foam insoles just so he can remember why he walked into the room, J.P. Shadrick.
And welcome in. It is Jaguars Happy Hour on this Thursday, May 16th. J.P. Shadrick with you. Busy hour coming up. The schedule has been announced. Yes, it's out there now, so we'll talk about it. Coming up, all 17 games over 18 weeks. Phase 2 of the all-season program is winding down. In fact, it ended today. Players off tomorrow, and then Phase 3 begins on Monday. We'll discuss some of that coming up. PFF analyst Max Chadwick will break down the Jaguars draft class. College football analyst for Pro Football Focus. We'll keep it real as always. And the Microsoft questions coming a little bit earlier today because John Oehser is in with us today. And good afternoon.
Did Joe record that intro and leave it for when he went on vacation?
You're not supposed to tell everybody how the sausage is made, John.
Well, because that's like when your mom would leave and leave you some lasagna when you're on vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So Joe's...
We warmed it up in the microwave.
Joe's an Italian chef. Okay.
That's great.
That's great for Joe.
Jaguars Happy Hour is brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history. And it's their debut as our sponsor for this Jaguars Happy Hour. And
good people down there. I like them.
I'll tell you what. The brew house I haven't been to yet. It's at the outlet exit in St. Augustine, right? Just south of Highway 16, west of 95. There is a downtown tap room.
I haven't been to either of them, but I was at a place about 7 or 8 years ago. I was at their old brewery. If you like craft beer, they're really good.
Yeah, and the one downtown, the little tap room is right by the cathedral, right by the old town, right in the middle of all that stuff down there. Yeah, I've been to that, which is cool.
Of course you have.
The Anastasia Island style IPA. We're going to need like a case from our new sponsor. It'd be great.
Is that all?
That's a good start. We've got a long schedule of shows ahead.
What is it, a Monday?
Right. We're on 1010 AM, Jaguars.com, Jaguars YouTube, JP Shadrick. That's John Oehser. Jeff Lageman out this week. He'll be back with us next week. Lots to get to. Of course, the community huddles have begun with the stadium negotiations going on. We'll get to the schedule of those coming up in just a little bit. But the schedule has been announced by the NFL. That was officially 8 o'clock last night, and we went through it on our schedule release program on Jaguars YouTube. But if you weren't able to join it, we can kind of recreate things right here, John. You and I, we'll go through. Let's start.
That's how the sausage is made.
This is exactly how it's made. We'll start off with the early part of the schedule, and weeks 1 through 5, the Jaguars at the Dolphins week 1 to start things off at 1 o'clock. Week 2, home against the Browns. Week 3, Monday Night Football against the Bills on the road. And then week 4 at the Texans. Week 5 at home against the Colts. And I tell you what, for starting stretches as far as they're concerned in the NFL, this is right there. It's got to be close to one of the most difficult in the league with 3 of those first 4 on the road and all of the first 4 playoff teams.
Yeah, you knew that it was going to be a, on paper, tough schedule because of the way the AFC South ended last year, meaning, 2 years ago, the Jaguars finished first, and I'm not sure anybody else in the division was above 500. So you were going to play all your division games were going to be against teams below 500. This year, 2 of them were above, so it was going to add on 10 of 17 teams have winning records last year. So 5 of them happen to be in that first 4. JP, sometimes I get criticized by fans. That's
Why you?
Hard for you to believe.
Why you?
But some people wrote to me today. I read your analysis. It's really negative. Really negative about the schedule. It's not negative. I just think the first 5 games, no matter how thin you slice it, they're tough. And you've got 4 division, or not 4 division teams, but 4 playoff teams in your first 4 weeks. And 3 of those are on the road.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can't win them. It means that when you're trying to analyze a schedule, that sticks out. And every one of these teams on the first 5, their fans, their team correctly believes they're going to the playoffs. Now some of the other ones later in the season, it would take a little bit of some serious improvement. Those 5 teams early in the season, you know me, JP, you've had to read my analysis for 10 years now. Teams that think they're in it and believe are by nature tough. Every one of these teams thinks they're good.
Oh, yeah.
Every one of these teams has reason to think they're good.
Oh, yeah.
Going to Miami, they're fast.
I mean, they're the fastest team in football.
You come back against almost – I'm not saying the Browns aren't fast, but they play different. The Browns want to beat you up. The Bills have a quarterback that can beat you up by himself. And then the Texans is a red-letter circlet game. So it's
We're going to find out about this new defense pretty quick, right? I mean, especially against the Dolphins. How do they cover Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle and Tua throwing it up and all these things? And that's right out of the gate. Ryan Nielsen's defense will be put to the test.
Well, I've sort of shifted my belief a little bit when analyzing defenses for this reason. I kind of believe that out of 32 teams these days, 27 or 28 of them have receivers that are dangerous, can beat you. It's how the league's played. Mm-hmm. And if you fall asleep against any team these days, they're going to be able to beat you in the passing game. But the Dolphins can really beat you in the passing game. They're one of the top 2 or 3 teams. Now, everybody knows their breakdown last year was really good against teams that didn't make the playoffs, struggled against not. I was asked today, is this a bellwether game? It's hard to know because you don't know how a season's going to play out. But, the Dolphins are not unbeatable, but you better cover them and you better get to the quarterback.
Yeah.
So it's tough. I mean, it's a schedule where if you're pretty good, I think the Jaguars are pretty good, they'll manage it. If you're starting out slow, oops.
Yeah, it's not a good place to be. That moves us on to the next portion of the schedule. And the Jaguars make the trip over to London in Week 6 for the road game at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium to face the Chicago Bears. Week 7, the next week, across town at Wembley Stadium for the home game against the New England Patriots. Let's just start with the London games.
Sure.
Back-to-back years now, 2 straight games. They won the 2 games there last year against the Falcons and the Bills. This year, the game locations are reversed. It is games 2 and 3 of the 3-game London stretch for the NFL. So the second Spurs game and, of course, the Wembley game. The Jaguars do not have to change accommodations this year. They get to stay all, 10, 11 days. They're going to be there in the same place, so that helps logistically. But here you go. The Jaguars are playing most likely 2 rookie quarterbacks in London.
Yeah, look, on paper, there's nothing as formidable in London as the Bills were last year. The Bills were an AFC East champion defending and looked like one of the best 3 or 4 teams in football. It was one of those, there were 4 or 5 games last year, the measuring sticks. There's one up. Let's take the 2 specific teams, rookie quarterbacks, all that. When you play in London the way the Jaguars do, no matter who you play, they're the only team in the NFL has ever done it back-to-back. They did it last year, so 25 guys and most of the coaching staff has done it. They know the rhythm of it. There's not many advantages in the NFL. That should be an advantage no matter who you're playing. So the way the schedule is set up, get to 3-2, 2-3. I think the first 4 are tough, and the first 5 are tough. People are going to look at this 2-game stretch as one where you ought to get healthy. I think no matter who they were playing, you look at it that way. But in this case, rookie quarterback, 4-13 team with the Patriots, they'll be favored to win that game. The Bears, Caleb Williams-Dan, they'll be favored to win that game. So, but guess what about that, JP? Doesn't matter.
Got to go play it.
Yeah. So
got to go play and
Bills
win.
were favored to win that game last year. They did.
They didn't. It didn't happen. So the Jaguars come back stateside in Week 8. The bye week's a little later again this year, but they're back home Week 8 right after London to host the Green Bay Packers. And that is a 1 o'clock kick. And then at the Eagles for Sunday Night Football at 8:20 p.m. in Week 9. Then it's on to Week 10, back home again. The Minnesota Vikings come to town. Then the Jaguars are at the Lions in Week 11, the bye week in Week 12. And just that 4-game stretch there alone, Packers, Eagles, Vikings, Lions, has the possibility of being almost as difficult as the first 5.
Yeah, and on paper, first thought is on paper, the, quote, break game would be the Vikings, who went 7-10. But in the last 10 years, that's the worst record the Vikings had. The Vikings, to me, are one of those teams that as soon as you sit there in August and think that they're all of a sudden they're 9-6. or they started off horribly last year and got hot late. Mm-hmm. They're not a team that's very bad for very long. So the Packers feel to me like a team. People are looking at the schedule right now and thinking, well, the Packers are okay, but they look like a team the way they peaked at the end of last year that they could be a flexing team. I mean, they could challenge Detroit, and then you got Detroit. So a couple of things with this. You saw the Eagles 2 years ago. Haven't seen any of these other teams since COVID on the field, I think. Mm-hmm. You saw the Lions in preseason. Yep. But who knows how that's an advantage, not having played, you can't really say it's an advantage for either team, but it's a factor in that it's high-level preparation for all those four. There's nothing really to refer to going in. So it's going to be a long month.
Yeah, the last time seeing the Lions was the playoff year 2 years ago, and they blasted the Jags in December up there. Right. Then the run started after that. But even then, that's 2 years ago. So
that was a fourth and a fourth-place team against each other.
That's right.
The Eagles that year were in the East. This is more of they're playing the Eagles because both teams were second last year.
That's right.
So, it changes so much year to year that if you played a team 2 years ago, there's not that much to draw from. But,
right.
I don't think the Eagles think they're going to stink. No. And
I mean, that defense certainly is not going to stink.
The Packers feel like they're really good. So, again, this could be all NFL schedules are hard.
They are.
When you look at them. If the Jaguars are good, they'll navigate this schedule. If they're struggling in any way, it'll bring out the worst in them.
And that's with pretty much any schedule in the NFL. We're on 1010XL AM, Jaguars.com, Jaguars YouTube. JP Shadrick, John Ogier, and it's Jaguars Happy Hour, brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. We continue with the schedule released last night after the bye week. Home against the Texans week 13, at the Titans week 14, then week 15 at home against the Jets. Week 16, the weekend before Christmas, in Las Vegas against the Raiders. Week 17, home against the Titans. Week 18 at the Colts for a date and time to be determined, Saturday or Sunday in Week 18. Always that flexible time depending on playoff implications. But 4 of the last 6 games of the season are in the division. All 6 are in the AFC, and they are alternating home and road, which is the case throughout the season. The Jaguars do not have back-to-back weeks of games in Jacksonville this year, and this is the stretch run.
Yeah, it's if you navigate the first 11 and are within a couple of games of the division, and if you're a team that peaks late, you're in good shape. You can reel everybody back in. It shapes up much like 2 years ago did, when they were 3 or 4 games down and got hot and were able to play the Titans twice. Mm-hmm. They were down 4 to the Titans.
That's right.
Titans hit a rough patch. Jaguars swept them twice. All of a sudden, they were tied. They were down 4 in week 11 and tied in 17. So you can make it up quick if you wind up being better than your opponents at that time of year. My only concern, I've said it many, many times, there are older guys on this team. Will they stay healthy and peak late? That's going to be a challenge. I'm not saying it can't be done, but to me it's a storyline to watch. Injuries on this team with older players, how much they peak late in the season, that is not a given with the makeup of the roster, but it's very possible to do it.
We'll find out. And I know Doug Peterson likes that later bye week, and they got it in week 12 to maybe kind of regroup for a run like that. But your point's good, John. I mean, they had some veteran guys anyway. They added some more in free agency, and it's a long season. Yeah,
and all of this, bear in mind, all this is very speculative. One of the great truths, and I wrote it again for tomorrow's Ozone, this is going to be a topic for the next 3 or 4 months, and it should be. It's the schedule. There will be charts. I'm sure there already are, strength of schedule. I think somebody said the Jaguars have the 16th toughest schedule. Well, okay, based on last year.
Yeah.
But in the NFL these days especially, you really don't know who's great and who's not until about week 5 or 6. By November of last year, remember, that Texans game was battle royale, right? Like it was everything. Nobody thought on September 1st the Texans Jaguars in Houston was going to be one of the biggest games of the year.
Nope.
So keep that in mind. The Jets, if Rodgers is on the field all year, maybe that Jets game is circle the wagon. I mean,
you never know.
If he's 40 years old, limping through the season, that Jets game could be like it was 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. So the dynamics of this change so much. On paper, it's very, very difficult. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah. And the schedule is finally here, of course, and you don't want to miss these matchups we just talked about. Whether you want to become a season ticket member, catch 3 or more games with Bundle at the Bank, or experience the season with a Proud Pass, well, there's a plan for every fan. Get locked in at jaguars.com/tickets or call 904-633-2000. John, we've lifted some Microsoft questions from your ozone. We'll get to those when we come back. We're both going to be here for a little bit. It's Jaguars Happy Hour, brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history.
Celebrating 30 years of Jags football by becoming the proud craft beer partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what better way to celebrate a throwback year than to throw back some of our expertly crafted beers? From Augustine's Orange Amber Ale to our Castillo Coconut Porter, there's always something new to discover at Ancient City Brewing, including the new First and Gold Golden Ale. It's available all around Duval. Ancient City Brewing, taste history, make history, and please always drink responsibly.
For generations, hardworking people have relied on Ford F-Series trucks to help grow businesses, communities, families. A legacy of capability and technology that has made Ford F-Series America's best-selling trucks 47 years straight. This is the next generation of Built Ford Tough. Based on 1977 to 2023 calendar year total sales.
I'm John Davis, Secretary of the Florida Lottery, and I'm proud to lead an agency that is creating brighter futures for Florida students, families, and communities. As the primary funding source of the Bright Future Scholarship Program, the lottery has helped nearly 1 million students reach their dream of a post-secondary education. And we will continue to do our part to ensure that every student across this state is aware of these opportunities and has the resources needed to succeed. Because together, we can build a brighter future for all.
The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with EverBank. Open an EverBank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. EverBank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit dreamfindershomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
Don't get sacked by a no-name propane rookie at Jacksonville. Draft an all-star and switch to AmeriGas, the official propane provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the homes and businesses who know it was always the Jags. Show off your Duval pride at your next tailgate with a Jaguars grill tank from AmeriGas. To find an AmeriGas exchange location near you or to order a propane fill-up for your home or business, visit AmeriGas.com/Jacksonville-Jaguars or call 844-PRO-JAGS.
Welcome back. It's Jaguars Happy Hour, brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Premier Soccer, premier venue. Premier League Soccer comes to EverBank Stadium July 27th when Wolverhampton Wanderers FC and West Ham United FC compete for the Stateside Cup. Tickets on sale now. Visit everbankstadium.com. Haven't had soccer in the stadium in a few years, I think. It's been a little bit.
Yeah, I don't remember the last time it was.
Oh, gosh. I mean, it had to be 13, 14 time.
Feels like Fulham was involved. In
Fulham was here in like a friendly,
Yeah.
and the U.S. team, I know, played here in one of the gear-ups for one of the things. And then I think the women's team played here at one point, played Scotland, I think.
Yeah.
It's been a little bit. Yeah.
There's been a few. And you know, if not even if, when the stadium gets approved, it'll be interesting to see what events along those lines they also get, because it'll be cool.
It'll be primed and ready for other events. I think that's part of the idea for sure. Jaguars Happy Hour brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history. We're on 1010XL AM, Jaguars.com, Jaguars YouTube, JP Shadrick and John Ozier. Max Chadwick of Pro Football Focus will break down the draft picks in about 10, 15 minutes or so. We talked a little bit earlier today. Time now for the social questions presented by Microsoft. We put the cat signal out on Twitter or X today. We didn't get any responses. I don't know what the heck's going on.
Everybody's watching the PGA.
Is that the PGA Championship's on Thursday? Yeah. Tiger played this morning. That might be why. Yeah, 1 over.
Okay, well, it's not bad.
It's not great. Yeah,
scrappy little round.
Leader's at 9.
Okay,
so he better make a little run tomorrow.
Right, so he's 10 back,
and it's not ideal to make it to the weekend. Here are some questions that we lifted off the Ozone mailbag. Okay. So we're just a straight thievery of this. This is Michael from Orange Park. I'll be honest here, Zone. The NFL clearly has it out for the Jaguars and always has. The schedule is brutal. I just don't see us getting to 500.
Well, look, the schedule makers are never out to get anybody. You have 32 teams, 32 fan bases who are convinced, just like in the fall, they're convinced the officiating is out to get them. In May, they're convinced the schedule makers are out to get them. They have 32 teams trying to get 17 games in place, somewhat equitably, somewhat fairly. The games themselves, for people, I think most people probably know this, but the opponents are set by a formula that can't be maneuvered.
Right.
The sites are also set that way. So when we talk about a tough schedule, they were going to play those first 5 teams somewhere along the lines. It just, when analyzing, you say, well, the first part of the season's tough. Those 5 games were going to be tough somewhere along the lines. So the league's not out to get them. They didn't give them a Thanksgiving game. They weren't out to get them on that. I think the Thanksgiving thing, which I got a lot of emails about today, look, the Jaguars fans and observers thought, well, they're going to put them on Thanksgiving because they've never been there. I think that was the storyline for Jaguars fans and observers. I don't know that the schedule makers were sitting in New York saying, well, we got to get the Jags on.
No.
They played 4 of their national TV games this year and were 9-8 last year. That's a 9-8 team in a small market. That's a reasonable number. If you look at it objectively, a reasonable number of national television slots, maybe one more. But you know what I'm saying? I don't think they were trying to keep them off Thanksgiving. They weren't out to get them.
And it's a safe play on Thanksgiving. I mean, it's the Bears and the Lions. It's the most played Thanksgiving game there is.
Yeah, you got Justin Fields.
That's what it is. No. It's the new kid.
I'm sorry.
Either way. I mean, right. That makes sense to me.
Right. So, yeah,
Yeah.
It's.
I wouldn't worry about they're not out to get a team.
What's the line about paranoia? It's just because you're paranoid doesn't mean they're out to get you. Or something like that.
If you want a tough schedule, look at the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah.
6 of their last 8 games are division games.
Yeah.
The other 2
in a tough division, right?
The other 2 are the Eagles and the Chiefs.
Right.
That's the last 8 games of their season.
And again, there is a human element of this. Somebody has to pick it once it's done. But they're randomly pushing this through a computer with caveats of this team wants to not play on these 2 weekends because of, say, Florida, Georgia, because of whatever's going on in their city. So they've got to force a lot of things into this and try to make it as equitable and fair as possible, trying to please 32 teams. And we all know that's not possible.
And not to mention the Steelers play on that Saturday before Christmas and Christmas Day as well. That quick
better them than
turnaround.
us.
Absolutely. Anita from Springfield with a relationship between head coach Doug Peterson and Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. Do you see us holding joint practices with the Chiefs, and do you feel those are truly beneficial? And would working with a championship team be different than others?
Well, it's possible. They're the first week. I think, generally speaking, there are exceptions to it. Generally speaking, I think coaches prefer to get that duel on that second week, just because they like some time early to work on themselves, get things going. Late, they sort of like to wind it down a little bit, and that's obviously there's many exceptions to that, but that's the general gist. It makes sense. Andy and Doug certainly, I wouldn't be surprised if they practiced against each other. Is it different against the Chiefs? Yeah, Mahomes is there.
Yes.
So that makes it tougher, makes it a better test than anybody else because he's Patrick Mahomes. Working against a championship team, it doesn't hurt. The Jaguars went to the AFC Championship game the year that they worked against the Patriots. I'd probably be stretching it to say that was why.
Right, but I think you get a good look at how a championship organization goes about their business on a day-to-day basis. And I think for that team back in 2017, they certainly kind of needed that. You had
no doubt
a younger team, you had all that going on, right? So
now my guess too with Andy and Doug, realistically, if the Jaguars, if the Chiefs are walking around here for a week, they're probably not going to see things done a whole lot differently on the other side. That's because right. Doug does a lot of things, I'm sure, the same way.
And Doug's won his own Super Bowl.
Right.
He knows how to do it.
But the answer to the question, how much does it help? Doesn't hurt. I think you can probably, you want to make sure you have X number of your own practices because there's stuff they're trying to get done, stuff they're trying to install. There's so little time to work in pads where you can work on yourself that's why they don't do all of them that way. Yeah. But having two, which is what 1 week equates to 2 padded practice against another team, that's fine. Last year against Detroit, for example, I think one of them was very spirited. The other one was okay. 2's probably enough. If it was 4, that's fine too.
It sounds like that second preseason week that the Buccaneers might be the dual practice. We'll see how that goes.
That's what you sort of hear. Makes sense. So
we'll see.
It's fine.
Now the trick would be too is if they go to 18 regular season games and 2 preseason games, would they add another? Could you, in theory, hey, let's just do more practices against other teams in lieu of a game?
Yeah, my guess is coaches would probably try to do that.
Yeah, because
less JP,
injury.
I hate covering preseason games, but I think most football people, evaluators, would like it to at least stay at 3, but I don't think it's going to.
Yeah, because it is real football. At some point, you got to go play against another team with live action.
Yeah, and so
at some point,
that's how it is.
Or you don't. I don't know, depending on what the rule is. We'll see what they come up with.
Money will dictate.
It certainly will. Final question of the day for John Ozier. Jason from Jacksonville. Do you think it might take some time for the offense to click this year? While a lot of players are entering year 3 in the system, 2 of the top 3 wideouts are new. Gabe Davis will be out for a chunk of the offseason. Do you expect it to take a few months for Davis and the rookie to get chemistry with Lawrence?
I hope it'll take a few months. That's 12
We was talking
games.
about the schedule.
And, realistically, they should be better week 8 together than they are week 1 because they're going to have a time on task game action. I think it will be imperative on Christian Kirk and Evan Ingram to be the go-to guys, the bailout guys. I think as long as those 2 are healthy, it'll take some time to get on the same page as Davis. But he's also a big play, deep guy. If you have Christian, Evan, and ETN there as sort of your bailouts, your super trust guy, I think it's going to take some time for Brian Thomas to be that. Mm-hmm. But I don't think that's what he's being brought in for. Bucky's, on our Huddle Up podcast, talked about it a lot. The belief is that Christian and Evan are your best receivers, and they're the engine of your offense.
You saw it when Christian was out last year.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are Chemistry is a huge deal on 3rd and 8 when you're calling a play and you're under a blitz and you've got to know exactly where a guy is and he's your bailout. That's really important. Is chemistry quite as important for the deep guy who's trying to stretch the field? It's important. But I think as long as you have it with the other guys, I think you'll be okay on this front.
I'd forgotten that Gabe Davis scored a touchdown against the Jags last year in London. On the in front of Campbell, it was a pass interference call, and it got called back offensive pass interference. They threw it again.
Yeah, it was
a
over
DPI, left side.
Where I was watching, left side,
near
close
side.
corner. Yeah.
Tyson Campbell got a PI on the play, and got him back within one score.
Gabe Davis to me is a guy, look, I know questions about chemistry. Gabe Davis and Brian Thomas to me are guys who sometimes, even with Ridley a little bit last year, I thought this was the case, can affect the game without always getting the ball. And Gabe Davis, you have to respect him. If you're playing defense, you have to account for that or he's going to beat you. Probably the same thing with Brian Thomas. With a 5th receiver on the roster, maybe the defense doesn't have to account for it as much and they're not going to get you beat. The stat will be the same, 1 catch for 8 yards, but the impact on the game, because he's Gabe Davis and they know about him, because he's Brian Thomas and they know about him, I think will be much more. So just a thought.
John Oehser, Jaguars.com senior writer. Great to see you. Thanks for coming in today. Appreciate that.
I saw you yesterday. It was great to see you again.
It's always a pleasure.
I enjoyed it. I appreciate it, JP.
John Oehser with us. We'll return with Max Chadwick of Pro Football Focus going through the Jaguars draft class. Jaguars Happy Hour is brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history.
Is celebrating 30 years of Jags football by becoming the proud craft beer partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what better way to celebrate a throwback year than to throw back some of our expertly crafted beers? From Augustine's Orange Amber Ale to our Castillo Coconut Porter, there's always something new to discover at Ancient City Brewing, including the new First and Gold Golden Ale. It's available all around Duval. Ancient City Brewing, taste history, make history, and please always drink responsibly.
The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with EverBank. Open an EverBank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. EverBank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Hi, this is Walker Little from the Jacksonville Jaguars. If you need to make room to watch football in your home or need a place to park your boat or RV, store it at Atlantic Self Storage, the official storage partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Over 50 locations in Northeast Florida, free 24-hour access, month-to-month leases. They make storage easy. Go to AtlanticSelfStorage.com or call 877-WE-STORE to find out why they're Jacksonville's #1 pick for storage.
Jaguars fans are gearing up and saving big at Fanatics.com, the world's largest collection of officially licensed fan gear from all the leagues, teams, and Jaguars players you love. Shop the most trusted brands, exclusive designs by Fanatics, and autographed collectibles from today's biggest stars. Join Fanatics Rewards today and earn fan cash on every purchase. Shop now and get today's special offer. Fanatics.com, officially licensed everything.
This important message is for business owners. The hurricane season is here, and the storm drains at your commercial property must be draining. Duck Duck Rooter is here to help. Give them a call today at 904-862-6769 and schedule a thorough hydrojetting and cleaning of your property's storm drains. Duck Duck Rooter will bring their powerful VACCON truck and get the job done right. Duck Duck Rooter, your trusted storm drain maintenance experts. DuckDuckRooter.com, a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
For generations, hardworking people have relied on Ford F-Series trucks to help grow businesses, communities, families. A legacy of capability and technology that has made Ford F-Series America's best-selling trucks 47 years straight. This is the next generation of Built Ford Tough. Based on 1977 to 2023 calendar year total sales.
feel like I'm definitely going to be ready, man, and just being able to contribute to the team, get around the older guys, be a sponge, be able to soak everything that they're going to bring to the table for me, and, just add my own umph to it, my own spin on it. But, just being able to take coaching, take constructive criticism, man, and just being able to progress.
It's Mason Smith, defensive tackle out of LSU, rookie, second-round draft pick, 48th overall. Welcome back. It's Jaguars Happy Hour, brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history, and we'll see what kind of history Mason Smith has in his future coming up in a little bit. JP Shadrick with you on Jaguars Happy Hour on 1010XL AM, Jaguars.com, Jaguars YouTube. Our thanks to John Ozier joining us in the first half hour tonight, going through the schedule and some Microsoft questions this evening. Jaguars in the city of Jacksonville presented the stadium agreement to the city council Tuesday afternoon. More on the deal available at jacksonville.gov. There's also a series of community huddles around town coming up for citizens to go show support or ask questions of the leaders involved. There was one last night down in Mandarin, very well attended, I was told, and there's another one tonight at Legend Center on Sotel Road on the north side. May 20th, Fletcher High School in Neptune Beach. May 29th, Sandalwood High School. May 30th, Westside High School on Firestone Road. No RSVPs are required, and all of the huddles are from 6:30 to 8 p.m., including tonight. Also, the Jaguars had a few signings this afternoon. A couple of veteran defensive backs, Terrell Edmonds and Trey Flowers, have been signed. Edmonds has spent a number of years in the NFL, about 5 seasons, actually 7 seasons in the NFL. And Edmonds, 6'1", 215 pounds, out of Virginia Tech, a first-round pick of the Steelers back in 2018, the 28th overall selection that year, and spent 5 years with the black and gold and had 5 interceptions with the Steelers in his time there. Last year, time with the Titans and the Eagles. So a safety by trade, now part of this Jaguars defensive backfield, at least on the depth chart. We'll see what happens. Next week is actually the start of organized team activities, and they'll be their debut with the Jaguars in the practice field. Trey Flowers, 5th-round pick of the Seahawks back in 2018, same draft. And Flowers with a few seasons in Seattle, 18, 19, and 20. Seattle and Cincinnati in 21, Cincinnati in 22, the Falcons last season, so Flowers joining the Jaguars as well. And linebacker Ty Summers also signed today, and the name is slightly familiar. He played with the Jaguars for 3 games in 2022, was part of the squad that year, and then was jumped up a few times to get a little action, but started his career in 2019 in Green Bay, 3 seasons with the Packers. And, of course, that little time with the Jaguars, the end of the season with New Orleans, and then last season all year in New Orleans as well. Mainly special teams contributor and practice squad type. So up and down, we'll see what he has to offer here. Those were the signings this afternoon for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they joined the rookie class who's out on the field, at least in Phase 2, with the veterans. That Phase 2 ended today of the offseason program. They'll be with them, of course, starting Monday. Phase 3, the organized team activities portion of the offseason starts. And we break down this rookie class with Max Chadwick of Pro Football Focus, college football analyst. He's the co-host of the PFF College Football Show as well. And I asked him earlier today what stood out the most about Jaguars' first-round pick wide receiver Brian Thomas Jr.
Yeah, I think he's one of the best vertical threats in this class, honestly. He had the highest deep receiving grade in the country this year, 99.9 grade. Hard to get too much better than that on a scale of 1 to 100, obviously. He had 12 touchdowns on deep throws as well, 20-plus yard throws. It also led the country. He had the most catches on deep throws. He had the most receiving yards on deep throws. He is a vertical threat. And I think that's exactly what the Jacksonville Jaguars needed on offense, was to get a vertical threat on offense with Trevor Lawrence there, who, for better or for worse, loves to attack down the field. So they needed a receiver that can stretch the field vertically, and I think Brian Thomas Jr. can do exactly that. So that's kind of what they were missing in that offense, in my opinion, and that's exactly the kind of player Brian Thomas Jr. is. So I'm really excited to see the fit with him and Trevor Lawrence. I think those two are going to work really well together.
Yeah, and obviously Thomas last year in Baton Rouge put up the most touchdowns in all of FBS, and and an offense that has some weapons over the years. They've produced some wide receivers out of that place. And if you have that vertical speed, then the rest of it can come at some point. I think that's the idea for the Jaguars coaching staff, is to maybe develop some more things in his game as that goes along. But when you start with the speed and the smarts, that's a good start.
Yeah, it's a really good start, honestly. And not only that, for the size, too.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a bigger receiver as well, got great speed, ran like a 4.3 in the 40-yard dash. And, yeah, like I said, I mean, he was in that offense with Jaden Daniels, who was also a great running threat. So it wasn't like Jaden Daniels was passing every time. And also the best receiver in college football this past year, Malik Neighbors. And yet Brian Thomas Jr. still had the most receiving touchdowns as well. So even though he was the number 2 receiver on an LSU team, he still was extremely productive and still was one of the most productive receivers in college football, even as the number 2 receiver. So that's why he ended up being a first-round pick as well. So he's got great size, great speed, and an excellent production this past season as well. I really do. I'm a big fan of that pick for Jacksonville at number 23 overall.
That tells you how difficult the final year of the SEC West was as well. If they're losing a handful of games with that kind of offense, that's
right.
Week to week in the SEC. Good luck. Staying in Baton Rouge, the Jaguars in the second round go to the defensive line and get tackle Mason Smith. All right, what stands out about him besides his impressive size? And, he's a guy that can jump in that rotation, I think, right away.
Yeah, listen, Trent Baalke has a type, right? And it's why you saw Trayvon Walker go number 1 overall when a lot of people, including myself, thought Aiden Hutchinson probably should have been the number 1 overall pick. He clearly values the potential of a player more than what he is right now. And I think that's exactly the way to describe Mason Smith, who is a, like you said, size, speed freak. He got hurt last year, so he missed basically all of the season besides like a few snaps. He got hurt in the season opener. This past season, he was solid, but I wouldn't say he was a top 50 caliber player. Like for me, I probably would have spent more of maybe a day 3 pick on him, like a 4th round pick. So getting him in the second round, I think, was a little bit of a reach, but obviously Trent Baalke is a type. Like I said, with Trayvon Walker there, they obviously value athleticism. You saw Brian Thomas Jr. be the first round pick, who was kind of a lot of potential as well. Mason Smith has a lot of projection, but he obviously has a high ceiling with how good his traits are. It's just that we haven't seen the production to match those traits just yet for a number of reasons, with the injuries, and just he hasn't really developed too much at LSU either. So he's definitely a developmental project for Jacksonville, and I don't love taking a project like that at number 48 overall, but there's no denying he has a high ceiling, and I think he could be a big-time contributor for Jacksonville if he develops like hopefully Trayvon Walker will too.
And they've got, some veteran players on the interior that they are expecting to play a lot of time there. Obviously, Eric Armstead brought in free agency this offseason. Roy Robertson-Harris, a guy who has been around now for a few years in Jacksonville, so that could give him a little bit of time to develop. Moving on to round number 3, Max Chadwick with us from Pro Football Focus. Jarian Jones, the cornerback from Florida State. And, this is a defense that has a new coordinator, and they've got some changes in the secondary. A couple of veteran players are out. So they've had to make some changes here. They did it in free agency. They brought in a couple of veteran players, but then they go to the draft. And tell us about Jones. Where can he play right away?
I think he's more of a slot defender, honestly. I don't think he's got the long speed to truly be an outside corner, but he's got the quickness to excel in the slot, and he's also a really, really good tackler, really good run defender as well, which, again, translates more to being a slot corner than an outside corner. He had a 90.1 grade this past year as 5th best among all corners in the country. Only zero touchdowns allowed to on 458 coverage snaps since 2022. So I like Jarian Jones a lot. I thought Florida State's defense was extremely underrated last year, especially their secondary. I thought they were one of the best secondaries in the country between Renardo Green, Jarian Jones, and Fentrell Cypress, who's going back to school as well. I really like Jarian Jones a lot, but I think I wouldn't expect him to be an outside corner for Jacksonville. I think he's probably more of a nickel corner in the NFL.
And then moving on to the 4th round, Jaguars had a couple of picks in the 4th. Javon Foster, tackle out of Missouri. Jordan Jefferson, defensive tackle out of LSU, more of a nose tackle type. Let's start with Foster. The Jaguars at the tackle position have Cam Robinson, who's going into a contract year, who is on a big money contract. Walker Little, who is the swing tackle, who was a second-round pick a few years ago and hasn't been able to crack the lineup consistently. And then Anton Harrison, of course, a first-round draft pick last year. So where does Foster fit into the equation, and what can he bring when he's out there?
I think Javon Foster is more likely a swing tackle right now. I don't expect him to be in the starting lineup right now. I will say, though, I thought this guy was one of the most underrated prospects in the NFL draft, and I'm a big fan of the Jacksonville Jaguars selecting him in the 4th round. Now, like you said, it is a kind of a crowded tackle room that they have right now, but there's no denying Javon Foster in the SEC over the last 3 years has been extremely productive as Missouri's starting left tackle. In fact, he had 80-plus grades in every single year of the last 3 seasons when he's been a starter. So he has really, really been an impressive player. There's 11 Power 5 tackles since 2021 that's had 80-plus grades both as a pass blocker and as a run blocker. Javon Foster is one of them, and here's 7 other of them. Javon Foster, Joe Alt, Talisa Falanga, Charles Cross, Peter Skoronski, Evan Neal, DeJuan Jones. I mean, those are all starting NFL offensive linemen right now, and a lot of them were first-round picks as well. So Javon Foster's not an elite athlete, doesn't have great bend, doesn't have great flexibility, but I do think he's been a really productive player. And I think down the line, if you're telling me this guy's a starting tackle down the line in the NFL, I wouldn't be too shocked, honestly. So I was a huge fan of Javon Foster coming out. I even probably would have taken him maybe even in the 3rd round of the draft. So Jacksonville getting him in the 4th round, that was a really good steal. And I'm a huge fan of his game, and we'll see how he can do in the NFL. But if he's anything like he was in college, he could be a very, very productive player.
And consistently available as well. He was out there a lot, played a lot of consecutive games at Missouri. Jordan Jefferson, big body, nose tackle. And I loved his interview. It was on the porch after the draft. He was on his front porch. He had like a shirtless shirt, a T-shirt, or sleeveless T-shirt on, wraparound sunglasses. He was just kind of like that gritty nose tackle type, and you need those guys on your D-line.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's the first time, I think I saw a stat, it was the first time ever that one school took 3 players from the same, or one team, took 3 players from the same school. And Jordan Jefferson was the 3rd LSU Tiger that Trent Baalke and the Jacksonville Jaguars selected here. A lot like Mason Smith in some ways, where he's kind of still a raw player that needs to develop a little bit, but there's no denying he's got great tools. I mean, he tested out as a well above average athlete. He had 34 bench press reps, which were in the 94th percentile for defensive tackles, even with longer arms, too. Usually when you have a lot of bench press reps, as a guy with shorter arms, because obviously it's easier to get it up when you have shorter arms. When you have long arms like Jordan Jefferson, it's harder to put up that many reps, and yet that just shows how strong of a player he is. He's able to stack and shed blockers in the run game really well. He holds up really well against double teams. Good burst off the ball, even though he's not covering a lot of ground. I think he's a solid athlete overall. Now, the problem with him is that he's just not much of a pass rusher right now. He has a 61 grade in pass rushing over this past season. He's kind of still developing technically, but I think as a run defender, he's a very strong player, will hold up against double teams, can stack and shed blockers. He's got good burst as well. He's a good athlete. Just got to get some refinement, I think, in his game, especially as a pass rusher, before he could be a full-time starter for a team. But if you're asking him just to be a guy who could eat up double teams and stack and shed in the run game on 1st and 2nd down, that's something I think you could do pretty quickly. So that's probably what Jacksonville has in mind for him right now, and I think that's something he should be able to do pretty quickly in his rookie year.
Max Chadwick, Pro Football Focus analyst and the co-host of the PFF College Football Show, joining us. All right, we'll group the last 4 draft picks in kind of the same window here. DeAndre Prince from Ole Miss, a cornerback in the 5th round. Keelan Robinson, Texas running back and kick returner in the 5th round. Cam Little, the 20-year-old kicker out of Arkansas in the 6th round. And Miles Cole, defensive end, Texas Tech. Obviously, these a lot of times will be special teams contributors and maybe develop. They're a lot of times fighting to make the roster in the later rounds, especially in the 7th round. Cam Little should be here as the kicker. Robinson might have a chance as a kick returner. But of those 3 position players, we'll leave the kicker out of it, who could make the most impact early? Who has the better chance to make this team?
Yeah, good question. I think it's kind of a cop-out answer considering he was the highest drafted of all of them. Yeah. But I think DeAndre Prince is an interesting guy. I mean, he has 70-plus grades in all 3 years as a starter at Ole Miss. He's really good in zone coverage, really, really good run defender as well. He ran a 4.38 40-yard dash. The problem with him and why he went a little bit lower in the draft, you hear all those stats and like, whoa, how did this guy end up falling in the 5th round? He's only 184 pounds at 6 feet tall, and he's a guy that really loves to play in press coverage. That's just not really something that can happen in the NFL if you're only 184 pounds. Like, you could get bodied by bigger receivers in the NFL at that size. So he's got to get stronger if he wants to become more of a press corner. But even at 184 pounds, like I said, I mean, he was holding up well in press coverage, and he was a great run defender too. Usually those smaller corners like that, that's where you see them get tossed around a little bit in the run game and then in press coverage. DeAndre Prince plays bigger than what he's listed at, honestly. So I think he could be a really good special teams contributor for them. And I think he could be a guy that needs to add just some strength, but he could be a good press corner in the league. So like I said, special teams is probably always going to be a guy that's going to be used early on in his career. But if he adds some weight and adds some strength, he could contribute more as a defensive player, maybe as a rotational defensive back for Jacksonville. Don't know if he'll ever be a full-time starter for them, but I think as a rotational guy, he could be a guy in that rotation for sure. So I like DeAndre Prince a lot, and I think he's an interesting guy in that secondary. Again, I won't expect him to make too much of an impact on the defense immediately, but as a special teams player, I think there's definitely a role for him on that special teams because of his mentality, honestly. I think his mentality in the run game, his mentality in press coverage, that's something that could really translate well to special teams, because that's really special teams is all about mentality almost. So you got to go out there and give it your all on every play, and I think DeAndre Prince will probably be able to do that for Jacksonville.
It's Max Chadwick, Pro Football Focus analyst and the co-host of the PFF College Football Show. The full conversation available at Jaguars.com and the Jaguars YouTube channel. We'll return with a preview of organized team activities. They start Monday, and it's Jaguars Happy Hour brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history.
Brewing is celebrating 30 years of Jags football by becoming the proud craft beer partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And what better way to celebrate a throwback year than to throw back some of our expertly crafted beers? From Augustine's Orange Amber Ale to our Castillo Coconut Porter, there's always something new to discover at Ancient City Brewing, including the new First and Gold Golden Ale. It's available all around Duval. Ancient City Brewing, taste history, make history, and please always drink responsibly. As the official supermarket of the Jacksonville Jaguars, Publix is helping fans gear up for game day with the limited-time Jaguar sub. Piled high with hot deli chicken tenders, boar's head bacon, cheddar cheese, coleslaw, and barbecue mayonnaise on a white sub roll. The Jaguar sub is an easy, delicious meal for any fan. Make it an ultimate game day by ordering the Jaguar sub online for in-store pickup. Publix, where shopping is a pleasure.
The Jaguars bring performance, strength, and passion to every play. And you'll find the same when you bank with EverBank. Open an EverBank Performance Savings account and score serious savings. See what you could earn at everbank.com/Jaguars. EverBank, advantage you. Member FDIC and the official bank of the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Don't get sacked by a no-name propane rookie at Jacksonville. Draft an all-star and switch to AmeriGas, the official propane provider of the Jacksonville Jaguars and the homes and businesses who know it was always the Jags. Show off your Duval pride at your next tailgate with a Jaguars grill tank from AmeriGas. To find an AmeriGas Exchange location near you or to order a propane fill-up for your home or business, visit AmeriGas.com/Jacksonville-Jaguars or call 844-PRO-JAGS.
Since 2014, there's been only one official home builder of the Jaguars, Dreamfinders Homes. With quality-built homes and a speedy move-in process, we're in 20-plus communities in the best locations across Northeast Florida. Dreamfinders Homes is everywhere you want to live. So get off the sidelines, Jags fans, and get into the game. Let Dreamfinders help you navigate your home purchase and offer great interest rates. Visit DreamfindersHomes.com for all your move-in ready homes and step up your game.
Mr. Chubby's Wings is a whole lot more than just wings. Craving the ultimate game day experience? Look no further. Swing by Mr. Chubby's and indulge in the biggest and best wings in town, all while soaking up the lively atmosphere with fellow sports fans. With plenty of game day specials and locations on the West Side, Fleming Island, Ponte Vedra Beach, and new this season, EverBank Stadium, they're here for all your game day needs. Mr. Chubby's Wings is a proud partner of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Mr. Chubby's Wings, before the game, after the game, and during the game.
Like I said, that was the goal for this offseason. Get stronger, get healthier, do the things I need to do to get my body, back to my old self, and just as a team, have a refreshed mindset and a hungry mindset, ready for another opportunity to play in February and January.
That's Tyson Campbell, Jaguars' fourth-year cornerback. Welcome back. It's Jaguars Happy Hour, brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history, and the full conversation with Campbell available at Jaguars.com and Jaguars YouTube. Caught up with him in the building here at the Miller Electric Center, just down the hall from the Hyundai Studios. I guess that was on Wednesday. What is today? Thursday? I guess it was Tuesday. It was Tuesday. I talked to Tyson. A big year. Obviously, contract year for Tyson Campbell coming up. And he missed 6 games last season, had a hamstring issue, came back late in the year, just wasn't right the back half. And, he's geared up and ready to go now going into this now 4th season in the National Football League. Of course, 1 interception last year. Ended up with 60 tackles for the season, but only played in 11 games. A year before was really his best year easily. 17 games, 3 interceptions, forced fumble, and the guy was all over the field making tackles and really improving as it went along, and hopefully that's the case moving ahead. New defense, maybe a new feel on the outside for him, and we'll see if that carries over. And the 2024 schedule is here, of course. It was announced last night, and so are single-game tickets. So don't miss your favorite matchups. Be at the bank when the Jags take on the biggest names and teams in the NFL. Lock in seats for your favorite matchup, and you can do it right now. Go to Jaguars.com/tickets or call 904-633-2000. Our thanks to John Oehser and PFF analyst Max Chadwick for joining us. It's time for Keeping It Real. Insert sponsor here. Less than a month until the players are out of here for the offseason program. That's about as real as it gets, by the way. But OTAs, organized team activities, start next week. And Monday, May 20th, is the first one open to media. The first of each week will be open to media. No fans allowed. So May 20th, May 28th, June 3rd, we'll have eyes on what's going on out there. And then mandatory minicamp the week after that, June 10, 11, and 12. And in years past, if there's enough participation in the voluntary portion, the veterans a lot of times get that mandatory minicamp away. I believe was the case last year. And from all accounts, from what we've heard from Doug Peterson, the attendance has been pretty good up to this point. So that's a good sign. And there are certain rules, of course, that are, extended a little bit more in this offseason program when Phase 3 rolls along in the OTAs. So you can be in the building 6 hours a day, 2 hours max on the field. Helmets are allowed for the first time. No live contact, no one-on-ones, but there is 11-on-11 offense versus defense and special teams drills that are allowed starting next week for the next 4 weeks. So we'll get a good idea maybe of, or at least a glimpse of what the thoughts are on what this kickoff rule looks like, because special teams drills will be allowed. And then 11-on-11. As we said, no live contact, no tackling, none of that stuff, but you'll get to see some, we'll at least get to see some guys move around. And it's the next step in this offseason program. And finally, it gets started next week. And they're limited to a few for the first couple weeks, and then they can cram in 4, I think, in week 3. And then finally, the 3 practices in that mandatory minicamp. So we are closing in on the dead zone, and it has come quickly. This offseason program flying along. It just feels like, that Super Bowl so late this year. Then the Combine came, and then all of a sudden it's free agency in mid-March. And then, oh gosh, here we go into the offseason program begins in mid-April, and then the draft hits, and now the draft's over, and the rookies are here, and then we're just in about 4 weeks' time, they're all gone. And then it's back for training camp in late July. So that's coming up next week, and we're excited to see it. And we'll have all the coverage, of course, right here on Jaguars Radio and Jaguars.com. Our thanks today, of course, to John Oehser, senior writer at Jaguars.com, Max Chadwick of Pro Football Focus for joining us. Full conversation with Max available at Jaguars.com and Jaguars YouTube. Our thanks to Max Hockman and David Cho in our studio for making this one happen today. Brent Reber as well, and congratulations to Brent, 5-year anniversary with the Jaguars today. Big employee celebration across the street. Thanks to you for listening, and it's Jaguars Happy Hour, and it's brought to you by Ancient City Brewing. Taste history, make history.